Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At the Movies with William Fletcher. As usual, I am your host, William Fletcher, and I am joined this week, as I have been on many occasions, Mr. Harry Jobson.
Hello, good morning, Vietnam. I have so much time to think of what to say every time, and I just
This week we are going to be talking about Superman, because there's a new Superman out this week. This is going to be a very stacked month for blockbuster cinema this July. Last week I talked about Jurassic World Dominion because there's a new Jurassic World film, and Harry did not join me for that one, but I don't think it would have been a positive. It wasn't a particularly positive episode anyway, but I mean, Harry
I don't
has
know
said,
if I've I don't know if I've
yeah, I was
mentioned on
going
the
to say,
podcast that one of the films I've actually like walked out on was the most recent Jurassic World. Not the most recent, but
yeah, the Dominion. So wait, so you did fully walk it? Because I like in my memory you said you considered walking out on it, but did
No,
you actually?
I left. I went to the bathroom. I thought, do I come back? And then I went back in strictly because all my mates were in there, and I didn't want to just ditch. And then I went in there, and I just started because we were like the only people in the cinema. It was like dead quiet, and because no one wanted to go see it. It was like release day too. We just wanted to go to the movie, so we were just sort of like over it and having a bit of. And I was like, "Watch, this is gonna happen." And I'm like, "Look, you're gonna think the T-Rex is dead, and then its eyes gonna open," and it fucking did. And I was like, I can't," and I like Jeff. Yeah. So yeah, that was.
Yeah,
You didn't need me on that episode. It would have been very negative.
yeah. And I know it was that, and I believe you also have mentioned Space Jam 2 in the past as films you've like considered walking
Yeah,
out on.
that very similar situation. I just had people in there that I couldn't ditch, but I was like, I can't continue watching this movie. Because I hold Space Jam in such a high regard, and like I'm not a LeBron hater. I quite like LeBron, but like Space Jam 2, not it, Chief. Looked gross, felt gross, sucked as a concept, and just thought, radio. Like Don Cheadle was cool. I like Don Cheadle.
We're instead going to be talking about Superman, and this is sort of gonna.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to talk about the films, but I feel like this will become very general Superman.
Well, because after the first one, they kind of all I mean, we're already in the episode, so it's not really spoiling it. But after the first one, and Superman 2 is really good, but like they sort of lose the plot.
So yeah, I mean Superman. I don't know if we would have ever really talked about Superman on the podcast.
Even as a character, yeah.
As a character, yeah. I mean, I think Superman is an interesting character in the sense that a lot of like people find it difficult to make him an interesting character, and I think there's very much a prevailing notion that he's a boring character.
And I understand that he's largely overpowered. Besides the fact that he's not half human, but he kind of is half human. I think the sort of Superman concept is really interesting because look at DC itself. They went and bought fucking Mr. Marvel, the Marvel, who ended up becoming Shazam. As a character. And the reason that Shazam works is because it's dynamic. It's it's a kid, like it has depth. Whereas I feel like, at least not since the 1978 film, have we really seen Superman with much depth besides like his dad going in a tornado, which is so dumb. It's like, oh, you got to hide your identity. I'll die. No, go away. Stop. Like, the first one, I think his father has a heart attack, but it's a much more realistic, like, unstoppable situation.
Yeah.
I mean, he does reverse time eventually in the film, which then makes you think, well, okay, do the, but like it's kind of, it's not stoppable. It's not like a nuke. It's not like
Yeah.
an earthquake.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think so. Yeah, I think Superman as a character is difficult to give depth to, but not impossible because the 1978 film, I think, does it really well, personally.
Mhm.
But
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Superman is, I mean, one of the longest, if not the longest, running book characters, like 1930. I don't remember when exactly he was like first created, but he's very much in that.
I think Fantastic
Um,
Four is also similar vibe. I think, but
I'm just looking
I
here.
know
The
exactly
first
what you mean.
comic he was in was published in 1938.
Is that
Um,
hold up, what was it called? Is it is it Amazing Story or is it Amazing?
it says here, Action Comics #1 was his first
Actually,
appearance.
yeah, but yeah, and he's holding the car.
Yeah, he's holding the R up, yeah. Which is just very much a well-known image, I feel like, of like in
Oh,
terms of
yeah, absolutely.
imagery for comic books, it's a very well-known image.
Sorry, I was thinking Amazing, but yeah, I had a poster of this in my room for a while. I had a calendar, and each calendar was like a new. I was really into comic books for a while.
Yeah, so Superman. I mean, how? What are your general feelings on Superman, just sort of as a
I love him.
character?
I love him because I understand that he's a difficult character to give depth, but I just feel as if I have opinions that we'll get to later in the episode, but that are sort of current. But
Hmm.
I was somewhat current, like 9 odd years ago. But
Hmm.
I think Superman as a character is the reason why I love Invincible so much, and I understand that that's like a hard. It's not a hard sell. Like Superman is basically Omni Man. It's just like 1-to-1. But Omni Man has depth, and I think Superman is such a good like foundation for that. I think he hasn't been executed as well as he could have, and again, that relates to my opinion about it recently. But I think Superman is as Kal El, Clark Kent, and sort of the duality of how. Again, you can nitpick and just say, "Oh my god, he put on glasses and it's a whole new costume." But I do genuinely think that it's such a the reason it's so prolific and that it works so well and why it's probably the most popular superhero of all time
Mm.
is not only because yeah, it's a man that can do everything, but it's also sometimes a man that can't do anything. And I think that's what's so important. I think his world is flawed. I think him as a concept is great. Superman,
Hmm.
like Clark Kent, Kal El. But I think once you start getting into like the deeper lore when it comes to like Krypton and like Lex Luthor, I'm not a huge fan
Mm.
of as like a character. I think then it starts to get a bit shaky, but I don't think that's fault with Superman. Like if we're talking about the individual character, I think yeah, he's supposed to be what the best of us relatively, but he's also not at the same time.
Hmm.
And I think that works really well. I mean, that's why I love Spider Man so much. Is he's not only Spider Man, but he's also Peter Parker.
Hmm.
Superman's not only Superman, but he's also Clark Kent. And yes, he can time travel, but we don't bring that up. We don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I guess to sort of get into the film sort of properly, there was the four Christopher Reeve Superman films.
He's the best
Made.
Superman, by the way. I love Henry Cavill, but
I think Christopher
when you think of
Reeve,
Superman,
yeah, just embodies what Superman is. Yeah, he just has what it take. He just embodies the role.
yeah, like when someone says Superman to me, immediately I think of Christopher Reeves. Like I would go Christopher Reeves, the comics, and then Henry Cavill, and then like we sort of work our way down through shows like Smallville and that sort of stuff. But yeah, he is perfect. Like I don't think there's been a more perfect casting for a role.
Yeah, but to get on to the first Christopher Reeve, Superman. I tried finding a copy of the film to rewatch for the purposes of this, and all the copies I could find were like 3 hours long, and I was like, "What the fuck is this? Like, why are these the only
Yeah,
versions of
right.
this film I can find to watch? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why are only 3 hour versions of this film available?" I didn't get it. I was like, "What is?" I didn't understand why they were the only versions I could find.
Because the typical runtime is about like 2 hours, right? 2 hours 20 or something.
Yeah, it's over. I think 2 hours, and a two and posted maybe like 2 hours 20 or something. I don't know.
I think Superman, just to speak more broadly on the character as well, has influenced so much that we don't really think about. We just do, oh yeah, that's a Superman spoof. But like Superman's been around for almost 100 years. 90 odd years, Superman as a character has existed. And in that time, he's given birth to Invincible, which is like a great series and now a great television series. It's immensely popular. Metro Man from Megamind is Superman. Like, what are we talking about? So is Megamind. They're both. It's a complete Superman spoof. Shazam, which is just Superman. I think him as a character has had such an impact on media that if you were to write anything about heroes ever, your first thought is how closely related to this is Superman. Like, how can we? What character should we do? An all-powerful character, because that's Superman, but he needs to have one weakness that is crippling,
Yeah,
which is a rock from his home planet that's radioactive. Cool. My question is, how much of this shit actually made its way to Earth?
yeah. There's a
How far
lot
was
of
Krypton from
kryptonite
Earth?
that they sound like in every film. There's just a like every film is like, oh yeah, I found some more kryptonite. By the way, it's
Also, and question, and this is speaking on the film, the first film. So, for those who have not seen it, Lex Luthor as a character who has a lair, even though like he's a wealthy property investor, there's no point having a fucking lair. Just have a normal house. But like I understand, and again, that's being nitpicky. For the concept of like a superhero film, it is arguably pretty cool and practical in the way that they explain it. In which like it's just like this abandoned thing that he just like takes over. He just holding the kryptonite, and it's supposed to be super radioactive. I understand it's radioactive to like Kryptonians, but would it not also be like just 10 times more radioactive to humans, or does it not affect them? Is it similar in the sense that Superman can hear a certain frequency that humans can't? But I just don't. I don't know. Like, why does it only apply to Superman? Because I feel like Lex Luthor should have like cancer, right? From all the kryptonite he's around. Same with like Bruce Wayne.
well, in theory, yes.
But I'm just proving an example of like when someone watches Superman, that's what they do. And that's why people say he's a basic character, because people can just nitpick anything that you throw at him, because yes, he is pretty much an unstoppable force. Like, again, besides a glowing little rock, but you have to give context to that. Otherwise, people are just going to go, hold up, why is that not like killing everyone else as well? But if it is ultimately like in the comics and written only affects him, and sure, if that's the weakness we give him, but again, like he manages to still like save the day. Well, he doesn't, but he manages to get free from that due to his side being human. Again, he's not human, but he was raised human. So like he emotionally, he's human. Like he's able to say like, hey, this woman's like, oh my god, my mum lives there, and Superman's like, yeah, I can save her if you save me, and then like, boom, he does. He fulfills his promise to the extent that like we see the outcome of that, which is way worse for him. But he has to make that decision where it's like, hey, what do I do? Do I choose myself, or do I keep promise? And keeping a promise is human. It's a good human because a lot of people don't, but it's him making that decision.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, yeah. To get to this first Christopher Reeve Superman film, yeah, I
Yeah.
like it. I think it's a really solid for like the time.
For the time,
It's
it's a gold standard.
Yeah, exactly. For the 1970 for the 1978 this came out. It very much is, it obviously dates just a tad, but
Oh, there are absolutely aspects of it that date,
but
but
you
I think
find
the
that with a
human
lot of
connections are
films
important.
made from, the 70s and earlier that they've dated, you know, not they've dated somewhat. Yeah, it's a solid film, for Superman, Um, not that it's not on the best films or Spider-Man films or anything like that, but it's yeah, it's not like to those levels, but it's also far beyond like the Fantastic Four films we get, and
And this is because I watched it earlier this week. Does Marlon Brando play Jor-El, like his dad? Is that Marlon?
yes.
What an absolute just like dime of a casting, right? Like being able to get Marlon Brando, who's huge.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know if I've talked. I actually did an episode on The Godfather, but I've never gotten the love for Marlon Brando as an actor. I don't particularly impressed,
I lo-
but I do know
it's less of like an
identity.
impress.
Yeah,
It's like a respect from me because I quite like Apocalypse Now. I watched the Julius Caesar film. Like you've got what's the other ones you got? Obviously The Godfather, Streetcar, Superman, I guess.
I've never seen Streetcar. I've never seen
And
Streetcar Named Desire, but
I actually haven't seen Streetcar either. I just know that it's one of his films because, like,
yeah, that's one of his earlier
you
films
go to
when he was
university and
younger. Yeah.
you talk to people who do films, and they're like, "Film, bro, you haven't seen everything from Marlon Brando ever." And it's like, no, I've watched everything from Adam Sandler though, and that feels like on the same level. Great casting, in the sense that it's like, wow, you pulled Marlon Brando for like obviously Superman, huge character. This would have had quite a big budget for the time, and it shows. I think it looks great. I think the flying. I think like there are moments where it looks like when he is reversing time, it does look a bit like okay, well this is special effects from the 70s. But I think
Yeah.
largely it actually pulls it off quite well. Like it holds up. For being 50 years old, borderline 47 years old, does a really good job for again what it is. There are obviously films that came out from around this time that executed better, but superheroes especially move in such an unnatural way, but you have to make it
Yeah.
look natural.
Yeah, but you also have to sort of not that I don't it just it's more just sort of I look at it like, oh, that's just charming, like look at how different if things were 50 years ago now, so I don't look at it in sort of a negative way. It's more just in a, oh, that's just seeing how things change in 50 years visual effects wise. This was around the time of Star Wars, which I think has held up remarkably in
Remarkably, yeah.
visuals perspective. There's also, yeah, other cuts, of course, Hackman as Lex Luthor, um with hair, which we find out is a wig, but he wears that hair for the whole most of the film pretty much, and
Which is
as well as
weird. It's such a weird, yeah.
but it doesn't look
But
right though. I don't think Lex Luthor should have hair. I'm gonna be honest.
oh no, I absolutely agree. I think it's ridiculous. Getting back onto the first film, I
First
think
film, yeah,
obviously it opens with like context of Superman's character, Kryptonian
Yeah,
from Krypton.
it gives us a which, you know, considering this, like, the superhero genre was not a thing really, I can excuse an origin story here because it's the first time it had
It
ever
needs,
been done on screen. You know, but nowadays I don't want to see another Batman origin story. I don't want to see another Spider-Man origin story. Like, I know all these stories. I don't need
I'm not
any
gonna
more.
lie, I'd like another Spider-Man origin story, but I just like the origin story of Spider-Man. But no, you're absolutely right, and it's the same with any hero. I think like it is easier to add context afterwards, and
Mhm.
that's how a lot of characters going nowadays. That's why there are less origin stories. Like the series Moon Knight was less of an origin story and more added context to his situation afterwards. And I think that was executed well. But here, I think it's just paced really well. At least the origin story part of it is. We don't spend heaps of time on Krypton, and then we sort of see him grow up, but that's not heaps of time as well, but it's enough time. And then we see him sort of, build the fortress. And yeah, it plays the sort of going through the motions of an origin story that we're all used to. It
Yeah,
paces it pretty well for a
it
first step.
does a good job of pacing the origin story. It doesn't overtake too much of the film. It does a good job of establishing what we need to know about Superman and, like, Clark Kent, really. You know, they do a good job of pacing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a, you know, it is an interesting story, and I think Superman is a character who can be incredibly interesting. These films really struggle to figure out how to make him interesting, which is the problem. Is films a lot of films are just not yeah
Yeah, like,
doing.
interesting by having him lose to Batman. Sorry, but like
Mm.
I hate it. So
Well, I mean, we'll get to it so we can
yeah, yeah.
go on about.
I'm just like slowly boiling, just like bubbling over here of like every time I
Um,
think about
mm,
I don't even want to put it into
but
words, man.
yeah, I will. Also, I do think it is interesting. Yeah, I do think that it is interesting to have someone as superpowered as Superman going up against just a normal guy in Lex Luthor. Like, I think that's interesting. Like, having complete, like, polar opposite characters, I think, is what you need just to
Like
make it
his
interesting.
motives are like low key realistic as well. Like as a character, I'm gonna buy a
Mm.
bunch of land and then make that land the new coast, so that land is worth way more, and I'll make a bunch of money. Like that's smart. It's not like obviously it's not. It gets foiled in the end, but it relatively is like smart. Let's blow up half the coast, but for an evil villain to have it grounded in realism and not just be like power invites challenge,
Mm.
which is I think works pretty well. And yes, he only really becomes a villain. Obviously, what he was going to do was villainous, but he only really becomes a villain because of Superman, which is such an interesting like way of going about it. Where it's like now I have to solve another problem. Now I have to overcome Superman,
Yeah,
which makes
I
him a
think that, you know, and considering, like looking at sort of that classic original Superman, it it's very small scale, just like based on what kinds of superhero films we get nowadays. It's a very small scale film. Like, I mean, it's Upman film, which has just every fucking character in it, basically. Like, there are so many characters in this coming Superman film.
it's weirdly grounded. I
Yeah,
think
it's very grand. It's not like a massive, like, act. Like, there's just this, like, like, almost stereotypical cliche stuff, like stuff Superman does, like when he goes, when he, like, I think he says like a cat in a thing,
He saves
which
a cat in a
is
tree,
just.
and he goes on like a flyabout with Lois Lane, and I'm like, that's what it's about.
And at one point, yeah, I mean, towards the end, Lois Lane dies, and then he gets angry, and then he flies around the world and reverses time.
Which is respectable. I understand that. And I think at that moment as well, it's actually important to mention that he hears the voices of both of his fathers. He hears his, Jor-El, and then he hears, I can't think of his name, but Kent, first name. Yeah, he hears his dad's, and he goes and he listens to his human father. He makes a human decision. I think that's really important because it shows where his character lives. Like it shows where his character lies in that moment. He is mentally a human. He could have done the whole "we must not interfere with human history," and he says that, and he hears that, and then he goes, "Oh, I could have said something really inappropriate. Then I'm not going to." But he makes a decision for himself. But yeah, I think that's important. It's important character development, and it's important to show that on screen, and they do, and I think that's done really well considering it was something from the 70s. And I understand we say that a lot and we're giving it a lot of leeway because it's from the 70s, but it's also like the first superhero movie that wasn't Adam West's Batman, and that wasn't really a movie. So it's the big budget feature length superhero film, and it sort of builds the formula.
But yeah, I mean, as a sort of starting point to Superman, it holds up. I think it's you know
I enjoy
solid.
it. I'd rewatch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do like it. I give it a sturdy 7.
I agree. It's just like a solid 7. I think it kind of goes downhill from here. But and I'm putting that into my ranking of like I don't want to rank this in the content. I don't want to give this an 8 because I know that I'm going to give a film later down the line like a 5. And give it a bad ranking, and I don't want to seem too harsh on that film. So I'm going to be nice on this film so it brings all the ranks up. I'm just trying to purely rank this based on like how I feel of it as a film. And absolutely, it's a solid 7. But we'll get later down the line, the digits get smaller.
We move on to Superman 2. Superman 2, I watched it today. I liked it. Thought it good as Superman 1, but yeah, it was a solid film, I felt. I think it was very interesting. I like the idea of Superman giving up his powers. I think is a fantastic idea. I think that's really interesting. I mean, Spider-Man 2 does tackle something similar, for example, which, I mean, that's a great film. That's Spider-Man 2.
I think there's a slight difference if we're just talking, and again, this is going to sound more nitpicky than it should be. But if we're just the whole way that like the we'll say villains are introduced, how close is everything to Earth in space? That frustrates me personally because I feel like the first film has sort of a grounded feeling. I feel like the second one sort of loses that. I understand it's Superman; it can't be grounded the whole time. You've got Zod and characters like that. I think you understand what I like. Without, yeah, I think it leaves behind some of the things I quite liked about the first one, but it also introduces things that I like Zod's character, and like sort of the wider world of um, Krypton and Superman's history and outer threats that can actually pose more of a challenge than just like a bald Lex Luthor, which he does still. I mean, he's still Lex Luthor, but like, come on. I think it's such an
Yeah.
interesting villain to have.
I like that we get sort of a different type of villain this time around with
Yeah,
like Kryptonians,
yeah.
which I think gives it something new as well. It's going in a completely different direction.
No, I agree. I think it is a good choice in the sense that it gives it more depth than it just being Lex Luthor. Like it feels like a threat. That being said, their weaknesses are just identical to Superman's, right? So we know how it goes. And that's where we get into the argument of is Superman's character blander than it should be? And how is James Gunn in the new film gonna not fall into the same trap that I think, although I do think Superman 2, Zod, losing powers, all of that is quite, I think it's executed quite well. I do think that if James Gunn's going to pull that off, I don't think Zod is the path for at least in the first film. So how is he gonna make this film not fall into that same sort of that's Superman we've seen. We know what his weakness is, and the only person that we've really seen on screen so far that can realistically go toe to toe is Zod.
Yeah, I think that is the problem when you get a character who's basically the same as Superman. Is it's like, well, can we end this film? And like you sort of, that's the problem if you have characters who are effectively the same as the hero. How else do you realistically end what can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the sort of the question you've got to figure out, really. Yeah, I do like this film, and there's another cut of this film, the Richard Donner cut. And I haven't really read too much into the situation surrounding this also, so I don't really know the differences between the cuts, but everything I've read sort of suggests the Donner cut isn't as good.
Like this film, at least whichever cut you watch, it follows a similar, like Superman gives up his powers to be with Lois Lane to live a life, blah blah blah. General Zod rocks up. Oh no, he doesn't like Superman because he didn't like his father Jor-El, and now it gets into like a bit of like a and Superman saves the day. Like that's basically the structure of this film. Pretty similar to the structure of a lot of sequels, but as you mentioned earlier, Spider-Man 2, it follows that similar. And again, these are, yes, they might not be polished, like as well as when it comes to certain story beats and visual effects. Although I do think again they're better than some we see today. You have to give it but this is the first one. Yes, it's Superman 2, but this is the first Superman 2. This is the first. How are we going to keep the superhero going in feature films? And I think it holds up relatively. I think the way a lot of people have this higher than the first film. I personally don't, although I do love Zod as a character, I think. And I do love the whole like giving up his power for Lois Lane. I think that the first one sets a foundation really well. And again, the way it executes not only pacing, but also the origin story hits home for me a little bit more. But I do quite like Superman 2 for what it is. I think some
I
of the
like it as
costume
well.
design,
Yeah, I think it
like the like what Zod wears and the other Kryptonians and what they're wearing. I think that looks goofy as fuck. But like again, this is the 80s now. This is 1980, 1981.
Yeah.
We give it a pretty. Well, we give it the leeway that it should have, but they're just wearing like karate outfits or something, aren't they? They're just wearing like robes, like glossy robes,
Yeah.
like black glossy robes. It's like sure.
I'm just wondering, how do you feel about Superman having the trunks? Because I feel like it's a weird.
No, he's got to wear the
like,
he's got to wear the tidy whities, man. Not the tidy reddies. He's got to wear that. Like he's supposed to sort of. That's part of his. That's part of Superman is that he looks kind of dorky, and Clark Kent, like Superman's a dork. He is a dork. in Clark Kent and Superman, they're both sort of like, although they're the best of the best, they're also sort of dorky in the sense that it's like not only traditional but also unabashedly so. In the sense that it's like, yeah, he wears undies on the outside of his suit. It's like
Yeah.
I assume he's also wearing undies underneath. I think that's just so it adds dynamic contrast to the suit than it just being all blue. The fact that he's supposed to be blue and red without the undies, just the blue suit without any other red accents, like in the first film, would look a bit weird. I think the yellow belt with which I mean, what's that holding up? But anyway, I guess the undies. But I just the yellow belt, the red undies, the blue suit, the red cape, the red boots, like that. That's him. That's if someone. That's Superman. And without that there, I think it starts to look a bit like you're embarrassed of the character, and if you're trying to do the character well, you have to do the character. You don't do Spider-Man without the big spider.
I don't really. I'm fine with the undie. I don't really. Honestly, I think it's weird that some people don't like it because it's like that's just a part of like the character. Like that's just part of what Superman is. I don't really see what's like the big deal with it because it's like, well, I don't. Yeah, I don't really see the issue. I don't care. Like I remember when they first revealed the look of this new Superman and what like the suit was going to look like, and people were complaining because he had the red undies, and people were complaining. It's like, oh, that's so stupid, and it's like, yeah, but that's what Superman is, though. Like he's meant to like, he's meant to appeal to audiences. Yeah, like I've seen so much stuff from people who just don't understand fucking super. Like there was a thing I saw on like Twitter or something where they said, "Oh, if which Superman would you be scared confronted by them?" And it's like you're not meant to be scared of fucking Superman. Like that's just not what Superman is supposed to be. He's not meant to scare you. Like he's not meant to be
At no
intimidating.
point is he supposed to be threatening. Yeah,
He's not like
Superman is
Batman.
supposed
Yeah.
to be literally the opposite of that. He's supposed to be the like, oh, thank God there's Superman, and he just looks like someone you can trust, and that's the point. You're supposed to be able to. He's supposed to be the best of the best. He's not
Like
supposed to
like
look like
Batman.
Batman. He's not
Like except like you should be scared of Batman because of what Batman
because that's a
does.
noir story. This is
Yes,
yeah.
but
You and I are on, I think, a very similar page.
like I think just the thing that bothers me with Superman is a lot of people just don't know how to write. I mean, we'll get into fucking Man of Steel momentarily, soon. Uh, but like just films that misunderstand and uh, and just don't like the people complaining about this new James Gunn Superman, and it's like you don't actually read comics. Like all the things you're complaining about are things that are literally like they're they're all just Superman is as a character. It's just very it's very weird. Honestly, I think it's just very weird. But on the whole, I do like Superman 2. I don't think I like it as much as the first one, but I think there's enough to it that I like. I think it's interesting, just like I mean, revealing his identity and giving up his powers. Like I think that's a really interesting idea,
Dynamic.
honestly. And it gives us something new for him of being like, well, yeah, he's not, like the idea of him just not being
A god.
yeah, a god anymore, I think is very interesting, and I think that's good. I like that they were willing
Explore
to do
that.
something different. In the second film, that it is a bit I'm doing it in like the second film, but I think, it's as it is, I think it's fairly, I don't really have that big an issue with it just sort of being
Yeah.
um But I mean, I don't have much more to say on this second one, really.
To me, it's like a 6.5. I think it's pretty close to the first. There again, I explained some things that I sort of nitpick with it, but other than that, I think it relatively holds up quite well.
I give it a 7. I like it. I think it's I think it's solid. Now the next is which I didn't actually have the time to watch, so
Oh,
being
okay.
just sort of on you.
Yeah,
I
so
know things about this film. I know
so
there's a scene where Superman fights Clark Kent at one point. I know that's like a thing.
yeah, it's fucking insane. Sorry, this is part of my language, but yeah, I see. I watched this probably about 2 weeks or so ago. When you first mentioned it, that's when I started watching. Started watching them all, and I was pretty tired because I've been starting work at about 6 in the morning. Like I should work all the time. And yeah, this one doesn't hold up as good.
Mm.
It's shocking. Like in aspects of not only does it feel like the budget has gone down significantly with a lot of the VFX feeling sort of outdated. You've got largely new characters. Obviously, you've got Lois Lane, who's played by
Margot Kidder.
Margot.
Margot Kidder.
Yeah, and then you've got Christopher Reeve Superman. You also have Robert Vaughn, who I know quite well from a certain film that I think some have seen. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Although I believe he's in it. He's in Well, I'm just actually going to double check. Hold up. Yeah. Okay, it is him. I'm just double checking. Basketball. Now, I love basketball. But
The
so he
trademark
was
Matt Stone.
I love that film. Yeah, and he plays like the Dallas, the big money sort of character in that. And yeah, he was recognizable to me. Everyone else I draw a blank when it comes to cast. But
I know Richard Pryor's in it as like a comedy.
oh yeah, Richard
side.
Pryor. He's Gus. He plays Gus. Can't remember the last name, but plays Gus as that character. And yeah, look, Superman 3 is slightly fever dream. So I believe he teams up with the villain, I think. Who's played by Robert Vaughn. Teams up with computer genius, science nerd, to just do like evil shit, basically. And then like Superman gets in the way, and then he's like, "Oh well, I must now get after Superman." Directed by Richard Lester. And yeah, he did the second one. Sorry, he didn't do the first one.
Yeah, no,
No,
that
he
was
did do the
Richard
first one.
Donner.
No, wait, Richard Donner. Oh yeah, sorry, absolutely different people. Just both Richards in my head. But yeah, I believe he directed the second and third. And yeah, like this one is not well regarded. And
Yeah, it's not a
you could
particularly well liked.
Yeah, but it's like Gus is the computer genius, so Richard Pryor. And it's largely, again, this is like it's grounded in the sense that it's usually the intentions of the villain is about money in when something's grounded, because that is real. Like usually the intention's always money whenever some villainous shit happens IRL. So yeah, I mean, it's about embezzling money. So Gus as a character, he like embezzles a bunch of money off the guy, and that brings him the intention to the main villain, like the attention, and he goes, "Yeah, you're a computer genius," but it's Richard Pryor, so it's like really not. It just doesn't work, and yeah, he uses like his mistress and his sister to get Richard Pryor onto his side. And then there's like all this sort of side plot stuff with with Superman's character that just doesn't feel like actual depth. Like there's like a school what's the word, reunion for in Smallville, so he has to go back to Smallville as Clark Kent. And then he's just like stuff like putting out fires. He goes on a picnic and saves this girl's son. Like it just doesn't seem very. It doesn't have the depth in that character development like it did. It's literally just Superman and Richard Pryor is how the film feels. It's a bit of a shit show, and I think a lot of the reviews, like I've never really heard great things about it. But yeah, the pacing's off. A lot of the characters don't really feel like they are well fleshed out and have much depth. Even Superman, who has just spent the last two films like building foundations of depth as a character, and yeah, it's just not well executed. It falls largely flat. I don't know how they got money for a fourth, just because I think it's like the 80s and they have like, they're like, this is a popular IP, it's the 80s. Well, let's just keep going. I'm sure they were all saying that. All the film execs and producers back then were like, it's the 80s, we can just do whatever we want. Yeah, and then there's like the computer becomes the villain because it's like a supercomputer that the villain has commissioned by Richard Pryor. And yeah, it becomes like self-aware and AI. So it's actually kind of poignant right now. Yeah, it's like a 3.5. I understand that seems harsh, but I gave one a 7, and it's like it's not half as good as one. You know, it's about half as good as one.
Yeah, and then Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Oh, it's not a good one.
Oh no, see, and that's the funny thing is like they were like, Superman 3. I don't think it flopped. I think they made money, but it wasn't good. They were like, Superman 3 didn't do well with critics. Let's make another one and make it worse.
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to watch this again.
It's only an hour and a half.
I had seen it before, and it's not a good film. It's a really shitty film.
It feels, like the feeling with all of these films is that the budget just keeps going down. And there's like that whole like courtroom where he's like, well, not a courtroom, it's like he's like at the United Nations or something. I don't know. It's like gets political. It has to do with like the Cold War and like the Soviet Union. I'm like, leave Superman out of like real world things. Keep him grounded in the world that he exists in, but don't like imagine you go into the next James Gunn film, the new James Gunn film, and they're talking about like Israel and Palestine and stuff. Like that'd be pretty fucking awkward, wouldn't it? Like I don't understand. I don't like stay out of it. I understand he's like the American hero, but like Captain America already fills that role. I don't know. Like I understand this is before any of that. Because as much as this also set up the foundations of how a superhero story goes, it also predicted how most superhero story goes. Where it's like once you start squeezing too much juice out of the IP, it starts to become sour. Like it really doesn't bode well for box office performance.
I mean, the villain is that they create this like guy with a strand of
Man or whatever
hair,
Yeah.
which is like is holding up like a weight, I think, to prove how strong it is. And then they get it by just cutting it with like some scissors, and I'm like, that's not. No, that's just if it's so strong to hold up a weight, I don't think you can just cut it with some scissors.
Oh yeah, just some normal scissors. And then not only that, they're like, okay, we're going to attach this to a nuke and trick Superman into throwing this nuke into the sun, and then create Nuke Man. And it's like this man that's like made out of the sun and a nuclear bomb and a bit of Superman's DNA.
Yeah, it's
I don't know if that's how genetically modified.
Yeah, and he's got like these really long nails
Oh yeah,
that like he like scratch Superman with, and he starts like and he starts getting weaker because he he gets infected or something because of these nails.
because yeah, we can complain about pacing, which it's an hour and a half, and yet it still feels like weirdly mistimed. And we can talk about the fact that the VFX will look worse, and we can talk about like substantially worse. Even though we've had a decade of computer enhanced, like a decade of technology to do better. I think the budget just kept going down. I've done like a year of theoretical writing in university when it comes to like how to write a story. And whoever wrote this film definitely not done even a year of like doing it. I reckon it was like some producer's 4-year-old who's like, "What about Nuclear Man?" And they're just like, "Okay, how are we going to put that in?" Because like Lex Luthor's the main villain again. Where was he in the third one? It's not that it's like, it's not that it's so bad, but it just is kind of shocking with no redeeming quality. Like it adds nothing to the characters. It feels like one of those like direct to TV, like WWE crossovers. Like I could imagine John Cena just appearing in this movie. And like a bunch of WWE wrestlers. Remember like in like Scooby Doo did it, and like I think Teen Titans did it, where it's like Scooby Doo X WWE, and it's like John Cena and like a bunch of WWE IPs are like, it's like a crossover episode. That's what this feels like. Like I could imagine if this was like direct to DVD or like just straight put up on like Disney Channel. It just doesn't. It doesn't feel like a film with like I don't know how much budget it had, but I'm assuming like at least 20 million.
Yeah, fourth film in a franchise, which is pretty impressive. Like considering how difficult it is to get that far nowadays. Like I'm surprised they got to
Oh yeah.
like. It's it's crazy this far. Like yeah,
Oh yeah, props.
franchises
But
just
like,
are yeah. Uh, there is where he builds the Great Wall of China with his like
oh,
fucking.
there is, isn't? They do that in the third one. He
It's
just does a bunch of stuff.
there is there is that film. I think it's Superman. There's like a S at like Zod, or like he throws the cellophane S or something.
And I think he does that to Zod because Zod's beef is with the L family, and that's the crest of like the L's. You know what I mean? But still, I don't. I don't. This one is like like a 2. This film sucks.
I mean, I give it a 1 out of 10, which is maybe harsh, but I think it's not good. Good.
I still, the reason I gave it a 2 is because I still get a bit of me Christopher Reeve Superman in, and I like that. But that's about it. That's like the only, and even the Superman stuff he does is like in the first film they have him like saving a cat, and that's like yeah, and he does like sort of little things. This one is like, oh, he's just going on a side quest. He's going to rebuild the Great Wall of China. There's no practical use for the Great Wall of China to still exist. Why would he rebuild it? It doesn't make any sense. Like they're not trying to keep Genghis Khan out anymore. Like, what's the? I don't understand why. Like, I understand like historically, but now it's not the same Great Wall anymore because it's been half destroyed. I don't. Yeah.
Finished with the Christopher Reeve Superman. They kind of said, "All right, that's enough." Christopher Reeve got paralyzed, which was
Yes.
a terrible thing to happen. So he could rise the role. He was also much older now, so but getting paralyzed never a good thing when that happens. But
No,
then
not
there
ideal.
was no, there was 2006 Superman Return. and by Bryan Singer. I unfortunately did not have the time to watch it for this, unfortunately, but I I know a bit. I know Kevin Spacey is Lex Luthor in it, which it's not great, is it? Kevin Spacey, watching Kevin Spacey movies.
But he gives
now,
Lex Luthor, doesn't he? But outside
he
of
does.
obviously
He
Kevin
does.
Spacey's a
Yeah.
person, like whether or not he was guilty or not guilty, I don't. It's not my. It's not my.
Yeah, he
I
does.
don't care.
He does
Like I don't.
fit. He does have the Lex Luthor type look to him.
He
He definitely would
absolutely
fit in
does.
that role. Yeah. I mean, do you want
My
to put
ability to
a rating
recall.
on it? Yeah, if you just want to
I
quickly
don't think
touch
it'd
on
be
it.
fair. Like I don't. I couldn't tell you the overall like plot. I remember seeing him and thinking, oh yeah, that's Superman, and then seeing him in Scott Pilgrim and go like, oh, as a kid. And then there's also the fucking guy from Sonic and Hop, James Marsden, in it
Oh,
as well.
yeah.
And that's all I
Hmm.
really remember. But he would
But
actually play
it's
outside of
one that.
that. Yeah, we could do, but James Marsden could be a good Superman. I think we're gonna give Superman Returns an asterisk because it's not like it got anything that really come from it.
But yeah, move on to the Henry Cavill DC EU Superman, which I watched Man of Steel for the first time yesterday. I'd never actually seen it before. But I watched it yesterday for the purposes of this. It's not a good film.
Sorry, really?
Man of Steel is in a. I don't think it's a good film.
I think it's okay. It follows in that sort of like dark gothic, like in the 2000s, in the early 2010s. Like we had the Amazing Spider-Man again. How many times? Do a shot every time I say Spider-Man in this episode. But we had the Amazing Spider-Man. We had Man of Steel. We had the Dark Knight. All these sort of, and obviously the Dark Knight, that makes more sense for it to be more gothic. It's Batman, and it's literally a place called Gotham. But that did well, so they went, okay, we're going to do Man of Steel in a very similar vein.
That doesn't really work for Superman. Superman doesn't. It just doesn't feel right for Superman.
There is something I will say. Henry Cavill, phenomenal. Like, not as Superman, but just, he almost is a Superman. I feel like he, not in so much as his, like, acting ability, but more so his just general look. Like, he kind of looks like since Christopher Reeves, obviously
He
we've had
does,
Superman
yeah, he does
Returns
have
and
the
that's
look
it, but
for a
he's got
Superman,
that.
yeah.
He's got that, and he
Mm.
like also just seems like a cool person. But yeah, I believe, like he loved the role. It meant a lot to him.
Mm.
Like he loved Superman.
Yeah.
I think obviously in Man of Steel we have it is like it's a part of its like it is a product of its time. You got Russell Crowe who was on the up and up, especially late 2000s, early 2010s. Michael Shannon as General Zod.
Mm. I think Michael
Lawrence
Shannon's a
Fishburne is in it.
great actor. Lawrence
Great.
Fishburne, I also like Lawrence Fishburne as well. Yeah, I think he's great. Got
Uh,
Amy Adams
I don't
as
I
Lois.
don't love I don't love Zod's I don't love his costume, but he's like his suit. You know how it kind of looks like all mechanical, and it looks like it's out of fucking Spy Kids. Like
Yeah,
I,
I'm not a big fan. That's one
it's a
of
real
the
issue with
problems I
me.
have with the DC. That was one of the issues I had with the DCU is the cost that they're kind of, yeah, crap.
Yeah.
They
But yeah, Michael Shannon, great actor.
don't
He was
really.
in, like 8 Mile. He was in Bullet Train recently. But yeah, I know him mostly from like before I'd watched Man of Steel. I knew him from 8 Mile.
I'm a big Michael
And
Shannon fan. I think um
yeah,
he's a very underrated actor. Like, I feel like he's never held up as like one of the best actors ever, but I think he's really great. I think he's
yeah,
got performances.
he was pretty great in Knives Out. I thought.
Oh yeah, Knives Out, of course. Yeah, but I've seen him in like Nocturnal Animals. He's great in, and Take Shelter is a great performance. Like lots of great
Yeah,
performances from him. And I think he could have worked as Zod. It's just the film wasn't well written. I don't think.
I think he's like he with characters like Superman and Wonder Woman and I like 300. I think it's great. I think it's a good Zack Snyder project. I think Watchmen
So I liked Watchmen. I thought
is
Watchmen was actually pretty decent.
yeah. I thought it was really decent, but I think when you're dealing with Superman, he doesn't fit this sort of style. This sort of the Man of Steel feels like it is, and we talked about earlier, but where it's like, oh, Superman doesn't feel threatening. Man of Steel feels threatening. Would you want Superman or would you want Man of Steel?
Wait, that
Unrelated,
it would be
but
like, oh, which
this
version of Spider-Man are you intimidated of? And it's like you're not meant to be intimidated by Spider. Like,
except Amazing
that's not,
Spider-Man, like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man does kind of look scary, like a little bit. The eyes are too big. It's like off-putting as fuck.
Yeah.
But
Well, those
I
his first suit isn't that great. The second one is much better though. The
yeah,
second one actually is a decent suit,
but
but
oh, absolutely. But I think that also falls under the whole. It's when you said like Spider Man, it is of that era. It's of that Man of Steel, that Dark Knight. That was the tone that was set. Everything was sort of grayer and bluer, and like for a for a Superman film, there's not a whole lot of color. There's a lot of anger in his character. Like, is Man of Steel? And I'm just trying to jog my memory. Is Man of Steel the
mm,
one with the tornado?
Tornado, which is
Yeah,
terrible, like
it's
really
so bad.
bad.
It's so dumb.
Because like Superman's father essentially, he dies from something that Superman saved him from, like a heart attack. Like that's the whole thing with
Kevin
it would
Costner, by the way.
be like Ben and Kevin Costner. Yeah, it'd be like if Uncle Ben wasn't killed by just like Uncle Ben wasn't shot, and he just instead, you know, had a heart attack or
It
something. I
would
don't
be
know.
as if
Like
it
if you
no,
just
it would yeah. So it would be as if like Peter Parker wasn't or didn't feel responsible for the death of his uncle. If Uncle
yeah
Ben had just like gotten into a car accident, like completely unrelated, nothing to do with the situation, there wouldn't be that internal conflict in the same way that Superman wasn't able to save his dad, that Clark Kent wasn't able to save his dad. Therefore, there is internal conflict in that he needs to save others and he needs to help others. In this exact same way that Spider Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Like, you're here for a purpose. But, like, absolutely. And he's like, no, don't come save me from this tornado because you reveal your identity.
yeah
So the few people in your family and closely related to you, like around you, know your identity. Okay, like
yeah. Oh, and
like he just
there's
goes,
that awful bit where it's like Clark as a kid and like he's on a bus and the bus like crashes in some water and he like saves the school bus and then Kevin Costner's like, oh,
yeah,
maybe you shouldn't have saved it. And it's just like, so I should have just let them die. And he's like, maybe. It's like, what do you? That's not what all these
that's
like
not.
parental figures pro, like they're always like, you help people, you save people, like like
Yeah,
that's what
without
Superman is.
obviously
He saves
the whole point is
everyone.
like the whole point of like the Kents is like John and Martha Kent is to um like their biggest message to him is like protect your identity is the most important thing you have. Like don't let people exploit you. Like you're Clark Kent. And as much as that is important, it's not a hill worth dying on. Like, especially in the context of the situation, who is around him that like doesn't already know or like would exploit the fact that now they know? And worse, like you could absolutely, it's a tornado. If he gets stuck in it, you could just run in there and be like, no, and then make it look like you're getting sucked up, even though you're flying, and then make it look like you fall out of it with him. I don't understand how like
Yeah,
you could. I don't. And it's like, how do you survive? And you just like pretend to be dusted up and injured and hurt, and be like, "Oh my god, we survived miraculously." Like, he didn't.
yeah.
It was a pointless death. I really just don't. Yeah, and that is my
Also,
biggest
I do want to
grievance. Like,
mention, um, yeah, I do also just want to mention that Superman kills Zod.
yeah, Superman don't kill, and that's like the whole point. Like the reason Lex
Yeah,
Luthor, we
again,
got
it would be
4
like if
films with him with the
Spider-Man killed.
Christopher Reeves. Yeah, which
Yeah, it would be
he
like if
has.
Spider-Man, like the same with Batman doesn't kill people.
And yeah, he cries, but it's like so.
Yeah, exactly. He
Like he
still
killed.
brutally murdered. Like, and it's not even like it's a like, oh, he like threw him at something. It's like he snaps his neck. Like that's it's a really brutal way to kill someone. Like it's a very personal way to do it. It's not like he just lays at him, threw him. Like he physically kills him. Like it doesn't make.
Oh
And I
well,
remember that
but
being like a big thing when this film came. The man broke
yeah,
Zod's neck, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's not Superman, guys. What the fuck?
yeah. The way that it is, yeah, I don't know. Just the whole era of like how Superman is portrayed within 2010 to 2020 is so poorly done. I think this film, for its faults, where I believe its faults lie in just the general sort of like characterization of Superman, which is like the most important thing when he's your main character, and like little things like very important story beats if you're going to do an origin story and just doing it in the weirdest way possible. I think the film looks beautiful. I think a lot of the visual effects hold up. I think there are some gorgeous sort of sequences and scenes that Zack Snyder puts together that, like, the mise-en-scene is done really well. I just,
Mise en scene,
um, yeah, I think its pacing is rough. Like, it's pretty good for what it is. I think it's like 2 odd hours or so.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think, but yeah.
yeah. But I think it falls flat on what's important about the character. I think instead of it being like a fortress of solitude, isn't there like there's like a ship or something in the Arctic that he goes and or
Yeah, it's
something?
not. Yeah,
It's not like a crystal that he follows.
but
That yeah, and then it's always some shit
yeah,
like
not a
Coda.
very.
I don't know. If I was to give it a rating, if I was to give it sort of a rating on, although yeah, how sorry, I'm just thinking like the fact the I don't know, just it's not Superman kills him in an accident. It's like Superman fucking goes like he lets the emotions get the better of him. He snaps his neck,
I mean,
and I
I,
understand.
I give it a 5 out of 10.
And yeah, that's
But yeah, I'll
that's
let
what
you
I'll give it
your
as well.
point. Yeah.
Because I just think like I talked
Mm.
so much on the first film on how like the emotion is such a big part of like Kal-El, Superman's character. And this is a really bold sort of choice to see how anger fully affects that, but like
Mm,
his dad died for nothing because he just killed someone. I don't know. It really undercuts like
yeah,
any other emotional point
yeah.
that there's supposed to be in the film. And it's like it's not good when you undercut your entire like emotional structure. So I just sort of like, yeah. It's a 5 though, because where it is entertaining, it looks great. I like Russell Crowe. Those are my reasons.
Yeah,
Fine.
it's yeah. I mean, I give it a 5 because it's not like the worst thing I've ever. Um, I just want better Superman films. But yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about Batman vs Superman or
Just
save
quickly,
that
just
for?
quickly. Um,
Um, I'm not Batman vs. I think it's also shit.
like we don't have to give it a rating. This doesn't have to be like a thing. But I did just
I
want to
saw
mention
this,
because I've been
yeah, in the
bubbling
cinema
about
when
it.
it came out. That's when I've seen it.
Oh yeah,
Um, it's not a good film though. I mean, you suddenly buck my expectations and you say you love it, but don't think you will.
no, no. Here's what I'm gonna say with it, and I'm gonna make this like in 25 words or less. I'm gonna try to keep it concise, and I'm gonna swear. So like, bleep it if you have to, bleep it if you don't. Fuck this fucking piece of shit. I I just can't. You do not have. I don't care about contingency plans. I don't care that he has kryptonite. How much does he have? Like, I don't. Like, it's fucking Superman and a guy in a suit that he made. And yeah, he's super smart and he's a millionaire. Cool. Superman has fucking laser beams in his eyes. He snapped another Kryptonian's neck. What is there? Like the fact that Batman is like they're like going toe to toe with punches, and Batman. Spoiler alert: Batman fucking wins. I understand there are external factors that allow that to happen, but it's like, oh, my mother's name is also like I just can't. I just don't. I fucking
Yeah.
my mother's name is also Martha. Like what? It's like that. I just. Mm. That's all I wanted to say. But I just it's so fantastic, fan stick. Like, wait, say that again. It's like, oh my god, I'd rather stick pins in my eyes than like endure this fuckery. And I understand there are some people that think Batman would win. Those people are wrong. That guy is a nerd in a costume who beats up poor people, and that is my. I think I don't like Batman as a character. I've said that before. I don't. I don't
Talked
think.
about this before,
The,
not a Batman film.
yeah, I like him in Lego form when he's voiced by Will Arnett. That's when I like Batman. But yeah,
Um,
he doesn't beat Superman, and the fact that it's just I'm just sorry, it's just so dumb. I
yeah,
can't handle the dumb.
yeah. I mean, do
And
you
the
want
fact that
to
like
talk
Henry
about
Cavill was wasted on that.
how do you feel about? Do you want to talk about James Gunn's Superman brief with any um
I've just yeah,
specific?
I've just sort of seen the trailers, and
Mm,
it looks I don't know. I'm reserved. I'm kind of hoping that it's going to be really good, and I have like a weird feeling that it might be a lot better than people think it will be. But from the trailers, it looks not like what I've come to expect from James Gunn.
Yeah,
But we'll see.
that's well, it's a very different style of film for him.
So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how it's executed. I'm excited to watch it, which is not something I've said about film yet that's been released this year that I've been like, oh, I need to go see that. This is one that's like,
Mm,
Minecraft. I was excited to watch Minecraft. It'll be
yeah.
good to get some
I
mainstream superhero.
very mm, I'm very cautiously optimistic. I want it to be good because I'd like a great Superman film in my lifetime if that's possible.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I think James Gunn is the guy to do it. Or I hope he is. Because if he's
Yeah.
not, then I'm kind of like, well, and because this is the beginning of this whole new franchise, so if this does poorly, the whole thing's gonna just immediately, and they're gonna have to cancel it. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I've got to say, unless you've got any final things you want to say.
Yeah, any people out there that are like staunch Batman fans that think Batman deservedly won that, or like the fact that, fight me. I'll get on. I'll have a debate on why I don't like Batman because I'm just not. I don't know. I'm not well educated about it. I just am very passionate. So let's go. That's my message. That's my message out there. I will lose, but God, I'll be loud when I do it.
Well, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you, Harry, for joining me for this week.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you've all
It's
enjoyed
always a pleasure.
listening, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.